Hey, everybody. This is your friendly neighborhood therapist, Alfonso, and I hope y'all are having a wonderful day already. You guys are probably hearing all this that's going on with Dr. or Cheyenne Bryan. I don't know that she's Dr. Bryan or not, but there's been so much going on social media about Cheyenne Bryant and whether or not she's Dr. Bryant, whether she has a license or master's degree or a PhD or anything like that. And I thought I'd pop on and do a quick video to help you guys understand why knowing the truth here is very important. I am a licensed healthcare practitioner, board certified psychotherapist. That means I had to go through rigorous training, education, a whole lot of things in order to get to this position. I am also a licensed clinical supervisor, which means that I help to train other therapists. Why is it so important to understand or to pay attention to what's going on here? It's because I don't know whether Cheyenne Bryant's credentials are real or not. What I do know is that we have to be careful about diluting. When I say the product, I don't mean to commercialize, not commercializing what I do, but the product that is healthcare. As a licensed board certified healthcare provider, the state entrusts me with the ability to diagnose and treat bona fide psychiatric disorders. Some years ago, I was providing treatment for a person, many years ago, and the individual suffered from a condition called major depressive disorder, and she also suffered from a personality disorder, borderline personality disorder. These are both two very tricky psychiatric disorders because with the depression, with suicidal ideation, that is as life threatening as cancer is breast cancer, colorectal cancer, brain cancer. It's life threatening and it requires a qualified individual to assess, diagnose, and treat it. With the borderline personality disorder, that disorder is characterized by people being very hyperbolic. When things are going okay, they tend to create chaos. They tend to have "I hate you, but please don't leave me" kind of personality. They can be very hyperbolic. They can make things up, and they will often use suicidal ideation as a means of manipulating people in their world because they seek, and they crave sympathy, usually rooted in real abandonment from childhood or fears of abandonment. This individual, I don't remember what happened that night in therapy session, but a few days later, I called her and we had a conversation. This was in the evening. We had a conversation, and she said, "Hey, Alfonso, I'm good. I appreciate what you've been doing for me." About maybe 3 weeks later, she said, now she knew that I was clocking her borderline. I never allowed her to present with those borderline traits, and we normalized around that. But a few weeks later, she said, "Alfonso, what you don't know is that that day that you called me, I was actually on the overpass of a bridge trying to decide whether or not to jump into the traffic." And she said she heard her phone ring and she looked in the car and she saw my name pop up. Now, also being a pastoral counselor, and she was a Christian or is a Christian, she said, "Alfonso, I thought that was divine intervention." And she also said, "I'm concerned that maybe you'll put me in the hospital." No, we're not there. You're contracting for safety. Your history suggests that I can take you at your word when you are contracting for safety. And we talked about the fact that her depression is so entrenched, it causes her to feel like she does not have any value, any worth. And she was very aware of when she's acting borderline and when she's not. As a matter of fact, she was a professional also, and she knew how to turn it on and turn it off. I'm telling this story because an individual who is not trained in psychotherapy, theories of counseling and psychotherapy, abnormal psychology, if you're not trained in that and you're operating as a life coach, you can miss when you're being manipulated because individuals with personality disorders have a unique and uncanny way of making you feel like you're the best thing that's ever happened to them. And so many people need to have their ego stroked, that when you meet somebody like that and they have, as we used to say, gassed you up, you can miss the fact that there's also an underlying psychiatric disorder that could cost that person their lives. Licensed healthcare professionals are required to carry malpractice insurance. We're required to continue to get continuing education units, CEUs. I've written a few books on things. You want to make sure that you're getting help from people who are licensed, qualified, and trained to provide that help. I love what life coaches do. I love what they bring to the table. I will often elicit the help of a life coach when I'm treating somebody with a chronic and persistent mental illness. I hear you. It is so important to understand that just because someone sounds like a professional, just because somebody tells you they're a professional, it is so important to vet their credentials, vet their backgrounds. More often than not, when you go into a practitioner's office, you're going to see something on their wall that denotes who or what they are. A few years back, I was going to take the 10 plaques and things I have on my wall, 10, maybe more than that. I was going to take them down because when I talk to people, I don't want them to feel like there's a power dynamic here. And my wife said, Alfonso, keep those things on your wall because people want to see the evidence that you are who you say you are. And I'm so grateful for that. I didn't take them down. It is so important to make sure that when you are seeking help, that you vet that individual and make sure that that individual is qualified to help you with whatever it is you need. And here's another thing, even in the field of healthcare, not everybody who has a credential is qualified to do every aspect of healthcare. A surgeon and a emergency room ER doc are both MDs, or maybe the surgeon can be a DO also. But if you need surgery, just because the ER physician has MD, now I'm sure may have done a surgical rotation, but just because that person is an MD doesn't mean that they are qualified to perform surgery. You do the research, you see so many cases of malpractice when people operate outside of their scope of expertise or distinct competence. Some years ago, I was providing treatment for an individual, and this was court ordered treatment. And as we were talking about the issue with the family, the individual had what's called a dissociative episode. And and it was triggered by the question because she had been traumatized. Whatever the question was, I can see her leave, dissociate. And she went blank and she started talking about uh, a sexual assault that took place. And as she talked about it, her voice changed, her eyes looked glossed over. And after she talked about it, she looked at me and she said, "What happened?" And I said, "Ma'am, you don't remember what happened?" She said, "No, I just remember talking to you about the divorce." The individual had, and this, some disorders, there's conversation in the field about whether or not they're bona fide or not, but she was presenting with what's called dissociative identity disorder, or as you may know it non-clinically, as multiple personality disorders, or potentially what's called dissociative fugue. When I saw what was going on with her, even though I'm a licensed, credentialed psychiatric healthcare provider, that diagnosis is beyond my expertise. I advised her of what I was seeing and I referred her to somebody with the same license, but who operates in that scope. Once again, I just want to make sure that you understand not everybody who sounds like a professional, looks like a professional, not everybody is qualified to help you. So many people do so much damage because in this era where we can become internet and social media famous, we'll start to believe what we've been telling ourselves to a point where, as we used to say, we'll keep the lie alive. In this case, guys, what you don't know, not only could it hurt you, it could absolutely kill you. So I want you guys to be aware and beware. Make sure when you know you need to get help, make sure you're getting qualified, professional help, and don't go with somebody just because they look good, they sound good, they sound the part, they look the part. Shakespeare said that all the world's a stage, and all the men and women are merely actors. Some can act so well that they should actually get a Tony or an Oscar or something like that. Hey, you guys know what I love to say. I really do love you. I want you to have an amazing day, and I want you to be safe out there. And if you can, reach down and help pick somebody else up. From my heart to yours, love you. Be blessed.